We are back with week 2 of the FERNWEH Quilts Along. If you are just now joining us, this is the FERNWEH quilt pattern. You can find it at meanderandmake.com. If you're not signed up to participate in this quilt along, there's a link below where you can get signed up and receive the weekly emails with your task, the demos, all that stuff, prizes, everything, and everything else. It's not too late. We have this is like a 5-week quilt along, and this is week 2. So you've got plenty of time. Or if you're watching this way later, everything is all still there for you if you want to jump in and do it on your own. Okay, so our task this week is to make blocks. So if you're making the 72-inch size, you're making 3 blocks. If you're making the 72 by 96, you're making 4. And if you're making the 96 by 96, I think you're making 5. So a lot of blocks, they're just huge. I haven't made this quilt since April, and I forget how huge those blocks are. So anyway, they're really, really big blocks, which means really big pieces too. So not too difficult, but there are some tricky spots. It's really just important to make sure that you have everything turned the right way and things like that, because one of my blocks, I was just about to take pictures for this week's stuff, and I realized that one of my star points were turned the wrong direction. Right after I had said, make sure you check them, I turned one in the wrong direction. So it happens to everybody. So just kind of look out for that as you go, because, you know, seam ripping is a pain. Okay, so I have the block demo for you, and before I start on it, I want to say again that this version 1 and version 2 is just really giving me a hard time on these videos, and it's hard for me to constantly be thinking about I'm making version 2 and you may be making version 1. So the way the block is constructed is exactly the same no matter which version you're making, but because fabric background and foreground are reversed in version 2, it just kind of looks a little different. So make sure that you know, you can use these videos, these demos, to help you learn how to construct the block, but you need to be looking at your own stuff for fabric placement, because if you're making version 1, obviously it's going to be reversed from what I'm doing. So I just want to kind of say that up front before you see the demo. And then here's the demo. Okay, so we are starting block making, and if you are making that smaller size quilt, you're going to be working on 3 blocks. If you're making the middle size quilt, you're going to be working on 4, and if you're making that largest size, you're working on 5 blocks. All we have to do is just grab these for however many blocks you're working on. So if you're working on 4 blocks, you know, you're grabbing 4 of these clip things that we did last week. And you're also going to be grabbing background. But before I get to that part, I just wanted to remind you that there are 2 different versions of this quilt. There's this version and there's this version. I'm not going to do a separate video tutorial for each of these blocks. I'm only going to make the demo for this one time. I'm going to actually be making it for this block. But just know that if you are working on version 1, it's just reversed. So when I use foreground, you're using background. And when I use background, you're using foreground, all right? And I'll try to do my best to point that out as we move along. All right, so we're gonna gather our fabrics that we need, and we needed 3, 4, or 5 of these, depends on what size you're making. And you also need all the background pieces. If you are working on version 1, those are listed out on page 5. And if you're working version 2, those are listed out on page 9. At the very top of both of these pages, it tells you how many pieces you need for the block. These are A's and B's. So once you've grabbed those, you're going to grab your background and you're going to gather what it says, enough for each one of these blocks. So let's do that now. All right, so now I've got backgrounds set out for each one of my blocks. We can put the rest of this away. All right, so I'm going to just put these, you know, with the blocks, and then make one of these on screen with you. Let's make that one. So I've got everything I need, and we're ready to go. All right, so again, if you are working version 1, you're on page 5. If you're working version 2, you're on page 9. All right, so we are gonna work on that corner unit first. And it's that 4 patch that's in each corner. It consists of 1 solid square, and then the other 3 blocks in the 4 patch are snowballs. Since parts of that snowball doesn't even get pieced, we're just gonna set those 4 squares out. So if you're on version 1, you're taking out foreground, and if you're on version 2, you're taking out background, just like me. So we're just gonna set those 4 squares to the side. And all the rest of these are going to be pieced with snowballs. All right, so we're putting all this stuff to the side and we're grabbing our foreground. All right, and then you're gonna draw your diagonal lines. It'll be foreground and background. All right, so this is how you do snowballs. Now, again, you may be looking at different background and foreground depending on what version you make. I'm just trying to keep it as simple as possible. And we're going to look at the number 1 right up under corner units, and we're drawing our diagonal lines. And what that looks like, I'm just using a basic pen, nothing special, and putting my ruler from corner to corner. I do want to make sure my line goes directly through each corner, and then we're just going to draw a line. And I'm going to continue doing that on all the pieces that it says on step 1. So I'll do it for all of these, and then I'll do it for all of these bigger squares. All right, so I've got my bigger squares with the line drawn, and I've got my tiny squares with the line drawn. And this is version 2, would look like this, foreground, background. If you are working on version 1, this would be reversed. This would be your foreground, and this would be your background. So, but we've done that, and that's where we're at. All right, so we're gonna grab 8 of those middle-sized squares. 1, 2, there should be 8 here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then we're gonna grab that, not the tiniest size, obviously, but the next size up. And all of these pieces are gonna go just like this. All right, and what we're making is these 2 pieces in the 4 patch. There is the 4 patch, and we're making these 2 pieces right here. If you're on version 1, there is the 4 patch. We're making this and this piece here, all right? So let's take all of these to the sewing machine. All right, and we are gonna sew directly on this line that we drew. We're sewing directly on the line. And then we're going to continue doing that for each of these. And we want to make sure, you know, that that diagonal line is clipping that corner. So it's going in this direction. And we're just going to send each of these through the sewing machine without breaking our thread. So this is chain piecing. I'm going to do that for all 8 of these. Okay, so once you got it, all 8 of them sewn, you're gonna clip your thread, and then you're just gonna cut the little threads that are connecting all of these. So you'll have this big, long chain piecing string going on, and we're just gonna clip all of them apart. And before we go to the pressing mat, let me just tell you this. If you're wondering about this, or if you're trying to skip the line drawing, I've got a separate video tutorial with all those details in it. I didn't want to make it a part of this one because it would have been so much longer. But if you're looking for time-saving things, I'm going to put those links to those separate videos below. All right, so now we should have 8 pieces that look like this. We're going to take our iron, and we're just going to set these seams just like this. You're not moving it around, you're just dropping it on there and setting that seam. And this will help with most of your tension issues, but it just gives the seam a little set so that when we go and trim these corners off, we are getting, you know, just better accuracy than if we skipped this step. This is just all about precision doing this. If that's not something you care about, then you can skip this part, that's fine too. All right, so let's go cut these. All right, now we have to get all these corners cut free. And I'm gonna grab them one at a time. And I'm gonna line up the 1/4 inch line of my ruler. I'm gonna line it up with my stitch line. So it is directly on those stitches. And then when I cut, you know, it's gonna cut a 1/4 inch away. So just like that, just like that. And we're gonna do that for each one of these snowball units. All right, we're gonna take these one at a time, just like this. And we're going to just slip our fingers in really gently, and we're gonna push that seam flat. The worst thing you can do is to not get that seam all the way out, because it will change the size of your unit. So you wanna be careful here, and you wanna actually get that seam out. When you get it out, you're just going to press it. Now, snowballs are a little finicky, so don't be doing this number here. Do not do this. You will change the shape from square to a wonky type of shape. So just kind of do this. And we're gonna do that for all of these, just like this. And you're working on one block at a time right now, so it should be 8 units that look like this. And then obviously if you're working on version 1, it's gonna, the foreground and the background is gonna be reversed. I'm using steam in my iron, in case you're wondering. And we're being very gentle, and we're pressing, picking up, putting down. Once we have all 8 of them pressed like that, we're gonna grab our starch and we're just gonna hose it down. It's really just a mist. It's not really hosing it down, but you get the idea. And then we're going to press again until all that little starch spots dries. All right, you're gonna have 8 units that look just like this, regardless of whether you're working on version 1 or version 2. There are 8 of these. The background and foreground will just be reversed depending on the version. All right, we're gonna put these with those 4 solid squares that we set aside earlier. All right, so now we're gonna be working on this part of that 4 patch. And when I say 4 patch, again, I'm talking about these corner units. 4 patch, 4 patch, 4 patch, 4 patch. Same thing on version 1, 4 patch, 4 patch. You know, you get it. We're working on this unit, and this unit has 2 corners snowballed. So let's get the pieces for those units. There should be 4 of these, and then you're using all of those tiny squares that you set aside, you know, per block. And we're gonna go to the sewing machine. All right, so this is what we're going to be doing. This little number right there. And we're only gonna do one at a time though. So I'm gonna just put this one to the side and make sure that I got this corner lined up properly, and then send it through. And again, we are sewing right on that line we have drawn. We're gonna do that for all of the units. So let me whip through these. All right, let's cut them apart. All right, and now we'll flip them around, and we're gonna put the corner on that opposite side, just like this. Clip these threads that connect them. All right, and you're gonna have 4 units that look like this. All right, and again, before we cut those corners, we're gonna just set these seams real fast. All right, we're doing the same thing on this one. It's just smaller, and we're doing both corners. So I'm lining up my 1/4 inch line of my ruler directly on my stitch line and cutting that corner. Then I'll rotate to the other side. I'm gonna do the same thing with this side. So we'll end up with a piece that looks like this. And let me do that for all of these. All right, I like to press these one corner at a time, but definitely do what you want to do, the way you prefer it. But I'm just gonna do the same thing, push these corners out all the way, and press. And I'm just going to do one side of each of these units. All right, and these are so tiny, you might have trouble with them staying. Like, see how they want to flip back? But the starch will take care of it. All right, and then we're going to press. All right, flip these to the other way, and then we're going to do this other corner. Starch, press. All right, so there will be 4 units that look like this. And you can see that they can go in different, we're going to be turning them, you know, all over the place. But this is kind of the way they end up looking. Uh-oh, like that. Okay, so 4 units that look like this. If you're working on version 1, this will be background, this will be foreground. Okay, so now we are ready to grab those other pieces and we're going to put our 4 patches together. You're gonna have this, and then this, this, and then that solid square. All right, and you're gonna have 4 units that are gonna look like this. But we'll just do them one at a time. All right, and we're gonna go sew this row together and then this row together. All right, we're gonna set these seams. So that means just giving them a little press. This will just make our precision easier to obtain. And then we've got something that looks like this. All right, so this top unit is gonna press to the solid block, just like this. And that means that my seam is going that way. This seam is gonna go this way. So it looks just like this. So again, in case you missed that, I've got this seam pointing this way, and I've got this seam pointing that way. And that will help these nest up and get me precision. And now we're ready to take this piece and we're going to just flip it down on top of this other one. And then right here, we want to get these seams nested. And this will just help us with our precision, but you can feel with your forefinger and your thumb, you can feel those 2 pieces of the unit just kind of fitting snug. I like to call it bumping up and kissing because that's kind of what they do, just bump up and kiss. We will take a pin and we're going to put that pin directly in our stitch line, just like that. And I'm going to go ahead and pin it on this end and pin this end. So just like that, and then I'm gonna sew right across here. Okay, all sewn. We'll give this a press to set that seam. And we're gonna open this seam up. So it's gonna go like this. We're gonna slip our finger into it and open it, and then we're gonna press it open. And remember to press and not iron. So I'm going up and down with my iron down the length of this. When I got it opened, flip it back over, give it some starch, and press again. All right, and this is what it should look like. And here's all those other pieces because I need 4 of these. So I'm gonna finish making the rest of these 4 on my own time and then show it to you when I've got it done. Okay, at this point, you'll have 4 units. These 4 patches that look just like this. And again, if you're working on version 1, this will be foreground, this will be background, all right? But they look just like that. And we're gonna put these aside and start our middle units. All right, so middle units is the very top left of the page. Page 6 if you're on version 1, page 10 if you're on version 2. And the middle units use those long skinny pieces that look like this, and it uses background. All right, so basically everything we got left except for that very center square. So center square is the only pieces not in action right now. And what we're gonna do with these is we're gonna do something like this. Now, if you're looking at your pattern at the top of those pages on the right hand corner, it shows you what the block ends up looking like. And what you can see is that you end up with 2 pieces here, right? And these, and of course they've got their units like that and like that, but they're mirror images. So we need to be really, really careful. We're gonna work on these one at a time, so to not get confused. So go ahead and pull 4 of these skinny units and put the other 4 to the side, and we'll work on those in a minute. Again, if you try to do it at the same time, even though they're really, really similar, they are mirror images, and you will, or at least I always do, get really, really confused when we start working with mirror images. So I'm putting 4 to the side, and we're gonna work on that first side. And with these, we're gonna go ahead and draw our lines. We've got to do that. So let me sit here and draw all my lines on those leftover squares. And then I need to show you one more tiny little difference about version 1 and version 2. All right, so version 1 has foreground as the bottom star points of that middle unit. So you're looking right there. Version 1 has foreground as the star points. So background up here, foreground down here. But on version 2, it's background up here and background down here. So background for version 2 on both ends, but a mix on version 1. So kind of make sure, or not kind of, make sure that you are really looking at those diagrams in the pattern, and you're looking at the colors that you're supposed to be using. All right, so now that we've got all of these line drawn, we're going to grab our 4 of these, and we're going to go to the sewing machine. All right, here we go. And I've brought my pattern with me because, again, if I'm not constantly looking at these diagrams, I'm going to get myself mixed up. It's just, that's what's going to happen. So rather than seam rip or have to cut more fabric because I've really, really messed up, I'd rather just get it right the first time. So I'm taking those smaller squares, put them on my right side, and I've got my long rectangles on my left side. And then we are just going to do 4 of these just like this. So we're going to do one side at a time. And if you'll notice, these corners go directly into it this time. So before we were, cutting the corner off, and we're still doing that, this time they fit snug. So you should have your diagonal line going directly into that corner. All right, so for every one of these, we're going to have it looking just like this. And again, I don't mean to stay on this way too long, but this is where the mistakes get made. So so if I do it this way, I'm in trouble. All right, so here we go. And we're going to chain piece these and make it move a little bit quicker. Grab the next set, and again, I'm double checking every time that I've got these squares with the drawn line in the right direction and I'm sewing in the right place. All right, they're all sewn. I'm gonna cut their little connecting threads, and then boom. Now I'm just going to leave them like this. I'm leaving them exactly the way they are in the diagrams of the pattern, just to keep myself again from getting confused. And this time we're staying in the same direction as far as our drawn line. So it's gonna look just like this. All right, and now we're gonna sew again on the drawn line. And I'm gonna do that for all of these. All right, they're all 4 sewn just like this, and we're gonna go to the pressing mat. All right, I'm just gonna give these a quick press to set their seams like we've been doing. All right, and like all snowball units, we're cutting that corner. So line up the 1/4 inch line of our ruler with the stitch line that we just made. And we're gonna cut those corners off, and we're gonna do that on both sides. All right, and we're gonna have units that look just like that. So I'm gonna do that for the rest of these, and there's 4 of them. So let me get done with those. All right, and just because I didn't say this while we were at the sewing machine, again, if you're working on version 1, this is background and then this was foreground. So I don't think I stressed that quite enough, but I'm sure you get it. All right, so just as always, we're gonna do one side at a time. I like to do these like this. Push out that corner gently and press. I'm gonna do that for all 4 of these units. All right, we're gonna give them a spray of starch and press again. I'm gonna do a little bit more right there. I like to make sure that that starch is landing on those seams in particular. All right, all right. All right, we're gonna flip these over and do the opposite side. Okay, so now we have a unit that looks like this. And this is 1/2 of that middle unit. Again, if you're working on version 1, your colors are in a different place. All right, so let's go make the other half. All right, so we're gonna grab those other 4 rectangles that are left, and we're gonna grab all of our drawn line squares that are left. And we're gonna go to the sewing machine. Watch where you're looking at on that pattern and make sure you're looking at the opposite side that we were looking at. And they're like right on top of each other. This is a beginner pattern, but I feel like it's got several places that could just trip you up. This time, we're putting these squares on the mirror image that we did last time. So they're gonna look just like that. I'm gonna send each one of these through the sewing machine. And I'm gonna double check myself each time and make sure that I am placing these squares in the accurate position. All right, all sewn, and then clip those threads to disconnect them. All right, now step 2. We are putting this square like that, right? Make sure you got it snug in the corners. And then we're gonna sew right on that diagonal line. And double check yourself because the drawn line is going into a corner and it's actually the same direction as the top, right? Those diagonal lines are in the same direction. All right, so here we go. Let's sew all these up. All right, so we've got 4 units now that look like this. And we're gonna set our seams. And, all right, and again, if you are making version 1, this was your background, this was fabric A, and this was fabric B. So just watch out for that. And then same thing as before, we're just cutting these corners off. You already know how to do this at this point. So just get both sides cut just like this. I just want to say something about all these little triangles that we are wasting. If you keep them together like this, you can sew them, you know, right along here and make half square triangles out of them when you open them up. You can put them in your scrap bin for tiny piecing. I fill a lot of doggy beds with these little bits, or cushions. I sometimes stuff cushions with these little bits that are for my porch that aren't as good as the ones in the house, you know. So there's a lot of ways to use this up, or if you want to chuck it, chuck it. So there we go with that. Let's get this piece pressed. All right, I know you've got a handle on these snowball units at this point, so I'm not going to go into more instruction about them. You know how to do them. We're just gonna press those triangles we're just gonna press those corners open for each side, and then we'll have this part done. All right, so I've got these pressed. They should look like this. And we're gonna grab those other parts of our middle units, and you can see these just kind of go just like that. So if you are working on version 1, this was background, this was color A, and this was color B. But both versions, we're putting them together just like this, and we're gonna go sew straight across that for all 4 units. All right, so now we have 4 units that look like this. We're gonna set those seams. And then we're gonna press these seams open. So open it up with our little finger, slip it inside, and then press it open. Just tapping and moving down the length of that seam. When I got it open, turn it this way, and then I'm gonna put some starch and then press again. And I'm gonna do that for every one of these units. So let me do that real quick. All right, so we have all these looking like this. We're gonna grab all the other pieces of this block, the corner units and that center square. Let me get you a better view here. Okay. All right, so the center's gonna go just like this. And those middle units are gonna go like this. I'm not gonna be able to put this completely on the screen, but you're gonna get the idea. Gonna look just like this. Right? Double check that you have these turned in the right direction. These are making your star points. So that, wrong. This, right. Double check it now, because I promise you'll be mad at yourself if you don't check it now. So I've got all star points connecting to my center square. All right. Then we grab at our corner units, and they're gonna go just like this. This block is massive. All right, so just like that. All right, things to note, that the corner units are all pointing this way. This, wrong. So double check it for all 4 places, because sometimes I have made these blocks and gotten one wrong and all the other 3 right. So I'm double checking, my eyeballs are falling to each block and making sure they're pointing in this way. And then these middle units have star points created with my center square. These are those star points. This is version 2. If you're making version 1, this was B fabric. These were B fabric. This is background, and then this is fabric A. All right, so little different look. I'm gonna pop a picture of the fabric A square on the screen now, just so you can double check yourself, and you just want to double check and make sure that you do indeed have everything turned the right way. Once you have it turned the right way and you're 100% sure of yourself, go ahead and sew this row together, and then this row together. All right, I've got my rows, row 1, row 2, row 3, so bottom to top. And I'm going to take the bottom row, right? And I'm just gonna kind of do this little number right here, where that I make sure that these seams are both pointing this way. I'm going to open it up like that. And then I just want to make sure that that seam is going in the right direction. So this seam goes this way, just like that. And then this seam is going this way. And we're just going to alternate these seams this way, just so that we can nest the seams of when we sew our rows together. All right, so just like that. The middle row is going to do the opposite. So we're going to press these seams toward this center square. So push the seam that way, press, and then push this seam this way, press. All right, and then the top row, we're gonna do exactly the same way we did the bottom row. I like doing it just like that. I feel like it makes my seams get in the right direction a little bit easier. So this one's going this way. And then this seam's going this way. All right. All right, let's put this top one up here. And then make sure, this is our last opportunity to make sure that we've got this block with all the pieces going in the right direction. Don't give yourself a hard time if you do have something going in the wrong direction. Go ahead and fix it now, because it just gets harder and harder the closer we get to done, right? All right, so we're going to take middle row and we're going to flip it down on top of bottom row. And then this seam right here should nest up just like we did earlier. Make sure it nests, they bump up and kiss, and when they do, we put a pin directly in that seam. This seam here should do the exact same thing. It's going to bump up and kiss. We'll put a pin. And then I like to take the ends and make them meet and pin down here. And I also want to make sure that they're meeting right here. So I'm going to put another pin just right there. I'm going to do the same thing for this other side. Do the ends first. Make sure they meet up. And then this part right here, I'm just going to put a pin in it. All right, I'm going to sew this together now. Okay, all sewn up. We're going to set this seam just like we always do, just to make sure it's nice and warm and in the right place. All right, then we're going to press these cross seams open, just like we've been doing. All cross seams get pressed open for flatter, more precise blocks. Those are my rules. It's okay if you don't care about this kind of thing as much as me. Be yourself, do it the way you want to do it. All is fine. You only have yourself to impress. All right. Uh-oh. I feel like I am like anal retentive about these seams, but it matters to me, so I follow my little rules. All right. Come on. Lots of seams in this one to watch out for. All right, flip it back over. All right. And I'm gonna give this a starch right down across that seam and press again. All right, I feel like I didn't quite get that middle part pressed open good enough, but good enough, I guess. All right, we're gonna do the same thing with the top row. We're gonna flip it down right on top of this other part. I'm going to, I'm gonna get my seams in the middle here nested up first. All right. And then I'm gonna do my ends. And then I'm gonna get right here where these little seams meet. Okay, same thing. We're gonna sew right across here. We're almost done. I love getting started seeing these blocks. When you see your first block, then it just starts getting so much better. All right, we're setting this seam and we're going to flip it upside down or right side down and press this cross seam open just like we've been doing. Flip it back over. Spray our starch. I'm doing it, down the length of that seam. All right. And if you want to spray a little bit more starch just to make the whole block flatter, I'm doing it. Okay, and that is the block. All right, so block, this is version 2 again. We have B, A, background, and if you're making version 1, it was background, A, B, and then these were also B. It's a little bit of a different look. All right, so go ahead and make all the blocks that you need for this week. Okay, so on Instagram this past week, I have loved seeing your fabrics, you cutting fabrics. It's been so much fun to connect with you over there, and a lot of new people to me, so that's been a lot of fun. Okay, so I have a new giveaway for you coming next Thursday, and it is going to be another set of $50 gift certificates to Meander and Make. So 2 winners next time, and both of you win that gift certificate. So to be eligible to win, you have to post your progress on Instagram using the hashtag FERNWEHQAL, and you need to be following all 5 of our Quilt Along sponsors. Next Thursday, I'll choose a winner and I'll post it on Instagram. Okay, so I really can't wait to see your blocks. So don't forget to tag me and I will drop by and see what you got going on. Also, if you have any questions or things like that, just put those in the comments below and I will get back to you on those. I think that's it. Have a good week.